Welcome. It's such a pleasure to see all of you. This is an annual gathering, and it's always a delight to have you with us. You might recall that 4 years ago in 2021, when the Global Plan was launched, a lot of our NGOs handed over the Global Plan to the parliamentarians, to their presidents, to ministers, to all those who are involved in the implementation of the Global Plan. Today, there's 1,888 days left in the decade of action, and we use this annual event end of October, annual event of the anniversary of the Global Plan as a checkpoint. And this is a checkpoint where we hear from those on the ground and those who are responsible for the implementation. Are we on target or are we off track? And since we had the last checkpoint in October last year, we had a ministerial meeting and ministerial conference in Marrakesh. And one of the very important aspects of that was commitments that were made. There were 25 countries who made commitments from stage at the conference. And we analyzed the 25 commitments that were made, and have presented that analysis. And that's something that's part of our accountability work. And this event is really about accountability, that we're checking and we are ensuring that we are moving forward. So our question here is there progress against the commitments? And what progress have we seen in the countries overall, but also in relation to the Marrakesh event? And that's the topic of our next 1.5 hours together. So a very big warm welcome to all of you. We have an agenda, and if we could get that up, then just share that. Great. We will start with a few remarks. And then we have asked our NGOs what they had done since Marrakesh, or since this year, since we last time had this check-in. So we'll hear a little video from all over the world from NGOs, what they have been up to and where they see progress. We then have what we call an accountability check, where Chika will take us through some of the efforts that are done around the world. Then we have a very competent and great panel of NGOs also talking about what they have seen. And that's followed by a panel of regional stakeholders. And then it will be followed by a summary of that Valerie Smith from Parachute in Canada will help us with. Throughout the whole session, you're very welcome to ask questions, put them in the chat. We will bring them in and try to make sure that as many as possible, we answer as many as possible. There's translation available for those of you who need that or would like to have that, Spanish and French. And it's something about in the button, you press there and you go into that room and you hear that. So without further ado, let's get started. We have a message from the UN Special Envoy, Jean Todt. Please, Federico, help us showing that.
Thank you to the Global Alliance for hosting this important annual event. NGOs are the beating heart of the global road safety movement. You lead people to power, numbers to stories, and tragedy to transformation. You can galvanize, organize, and wake society up to the risk on the roads. You can say what many cannot. You can hold power to account. The Global Plan anniversary marks a key moment to reflect on progress. We are halfway through the decade of action. There are bright spots, but we must move from a 5 to a 50% drop in deaths in 5 years. This can be done. Marrakesh saw real momentum, and we must build on that. Around 30 countries made clear, concrete commitments at the Morocco Ministerial. Bangladesh pledged to launch its first national road safety law. Colombia promised more cities will have safe speed limits. Ivory Coast pledged to raise motorcycle helmet use to over 90% by 2027. Thailand pledged to bring its road fatality rate down to 12 per 100,000 in 2 years. Government coordination is key. We need strong lead agencies, clear plans, and good data. All sectors must be involved, especially transport and health, which must work closely together. There is no progress without pressure, so let's make sure they get it done. Road safety is everyone's business and everyone's concern. Let's be bold and creative in our advocacy and campaigns, making the most of new technologies. Safe mobility is a human right, and it must benefit everyone in society. Let's work together to end the silent pandemic on the roads. I thank you.
Thank you very much to the UN Special Envoy for his remarks, which frame very well what we're going to talk about. At this point in time, we should actually have had Benazir Boulajoul, who's the Director General of the Moroccan Road Safety Agency, and he was also our host at the ministerial conference in February. But unfortunately, he sent me a message, said that he is at the annual budget discussions in his parliament, and we really don't want to disturb him in that. We want him to defend his budget, and so unfortunately he couldn't make it. But what he also did, he asked me to send his best wishes and let us all know that that we have his full support, that he's one of us, and that he believes in us, and he's very proud of our work. So thank you to Mr. Boulajoul for those remarks, and then I think in return he should definitely try to get as much funding for the Moroccans as possible for road safety. Etienne Krug is our next opening remark person. Etienne Krug, Director, Department of Health Determinants, Promotion and Prevention, World Health Organization. Etienne, over to you.
Thanks so much, Lotte. Good day, colleagues all over the world. It's so nice to see many of you joining this anniversary event, and thanks for organizing this, Lotte and the Secretariat of the Alliance. It's really great to see this event happen now every year. An excellent opportunity to come together and reflect on progress and where we can do better. I think as we do that, we have to recognize that our world is not in a great place. We are not doing road safety in a vacuum. We're doing road safety in a world that is difficult, where there are tensions between countries, where there are huge budget cuts, where multilateralism and international cooperation have become more difficult. We need to recognize that and therefore also take it into account when we assess progress made. It may be harder to make progress in a world like that. At the same time, the topic we are working on, road traffic injuries, is one that we all can agree on. I don't think any government, any country, anybody really wants to see more road traffic crashes, wants to see more people, children, women, men, losing their lives on the roads. So we need to use that as an argument that this is an area we should continue to rally for. It's also an area where we have solutions for, where we have cost-effective interventions. So let's keep reminding governments around the world that they can do something about this, that they should do something about it, that we have the tools, and it's a question of political will. As Jean just said, we were, and you as well, Lotte, we were in Marrakesh not so long ago, where countries, governments, for the first time made a series of commitments. It was an important step, and it's never easy to get governments to make commitments, but it's even harder to get these commitments transformed into action. And this is where we all, UN agencies, but especially also NGOs, can have a key role. Our last status report showed that progress is possible. 10 countries achieved more than 50% reduction in the last decade, and another group achieved between 30 and 50. So reductions are possible. What we see is that these reductions happen when there is top political will, and that political will comes from pressure. It comes from pressure from those who've been affected by crashes. It comes from pressure from civil society, from the media, concrete demands, and assistance showing that prevention is possible. So congratulations again to all of you for what you're doing. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I know it's complicated to advance in this difficult world and with very limited resources. But we are making progress. Let's recognize that, and together we are stronger. So let's continue our collaboration and keep up the great work. Thanks so much for having me. I think you're on mute, Lotte.
Yeah, thanks, Etienne. I think we need all the support we can. We're definitely also facing pressure, and we're facing, I think all our NGOs are facing that is very, very difficult right at these times. That's some of the things we will talk about in one of the panels. So please stick around, Etienne, if you can. I know you are expanding your role at the WHO because of the recent situation and reshuffling. So you have many more areas to cover. But I think the good news is also that there's a lot of synergies between road safety and some of the areas that you're covering. And at some point, I think it would be really, really helpful for us to understand how can we leverage our situation, our work with some of these areas. And maybe that's worth a session at some point, Etienne. We would welcome that. Thanks for your words. We have, as I said, spoken to some of the NGOs around the world of what they have been up to, and thanks to all of you for sending your little clips to us. We have turned it into a small video that we will also share on social media. So Federico, please share it.
Our government has committed to sustained sensitization and stronger enforcement, while also exploring the 30 km/h speed limit in high-risk school and market zones.
Government committed to enforcing helmet use for both riders and passengers.
La Secretaría de Movilidad y Servicio al Ciudadano se comprometió en esta peatonalización de casi 500 metros a repintar las sendas peatonales, ya que hay un riesgo potencial.
We're 1,400 kilometers away, but we've been able to work together as a team.
With the help of Mobility Snapshot, we advocated for slower speeds, better pedestrian crossing at high-speed corridors, and we were able to implement zebra crossing at the junctions, put signages on the road, and
salimos a la calle a observar sistemáticamente el comportamiento de peatones, ciclistas y automovilistas.
Impulsamos aranceles del 0% de importación para cascos homologados, porque son la diferencia entre la vida y la muerte después de un siniestro.
Using the Accountability Toolkit, we made stakeholders and straightened relationships with authorities, which supported our Safe Pathway project. Vehicle speeds around schools dropped by 50%.
We have been advocating for a safe maximum speeds law at the national level, aiming to have speed limits of 30 kilometers an hour in every street across the country.
And raised our voices during the UN Global Road Safety Week. We demanded action. The result is marvelous.
By meeting the Ministry of Physical Infrastructures and Transport, parliamentarians and municipal leaders, our advocacy raised the road safety as a national priority.
We are happy with the government that has put in this regulation, and we hope that it will help in reducing road crashing, especially for pedestrians.
Evidenced by lack of no walkways, no safe crossings, among other issues. Despite the fact that this is a very busy section, attracting over 670 pedestrians per peak hour.
Hello, everyone. That was a great video, and thank you so much for all the inputs from our member NGOs to make that possible. And just to continue on with the accountability theme, as you would recall, as highlighted in the global plan, one of the key roles for NGOs is to hold governments accountable. And a key way to do that, to hold governments accountable, is for NGOs to monitor and report on government actions and government inactions. And so this anniversary event is a really key moment for us to demonstrate that NGO role. And so this is why we invited our member NGOs this year to participate in this accountability check. And we heard from 23 NGOs from 17 countries. And we really would like to thank all the NGOs who are listed on the next slide for actively participating in this accountability check. And, this is a key role for the NGOs. So I really do hope that in next year, we will have significantly more NGOs participating in this so that we can really highlight the power that we hold as NGOs to push the governments, especially, to achieve the global target of reducing deaths and injuries by 50%. And as you would recall, on the next slide, we have been equipping our NGOs to amplify the demand for 5 particular priority interventions. That is 30K zones, lower speed limits, pedestrian facilities, traffic calming, and motorcycle helmet law enforcement and its promotion. And these priority interventions have been the cornerstone of the Alliance Accountability Toolkit, which is another tool that we have been supporting our NGOs to implement on the ground so that you can push for these priority interventions. And the other resources that we have been providing our NGOs has been as shown in the next slide, the Alliance Accountability Toolkit and the Alliance Incubator Program. Many of you here have been participating in this, which is fantastic. And the mobility snapshots, we've heard on the video, some of the successes that are coming out of the mobility snapshots, as well as the white paper, making safe helmets a reality for all. And so what we asked in this accountability check was the implementation status. Have any of these 5 priority interventions been implemented in the past year? And if so, have any of these Alliance resources helped to contribute to that implementation? And we see that pedestrian facilities was actually one of the most common intervention that was implemented in the past year, which is wonderful to see, as well as lower speed limits, traffic calming in 30K zones. And we're also seeing helmet law enforcement and promotion and other interventions as well, which covered things like police training for enforcement and multi-sectoral government collaboration. And we see that some of these implementation have been contributed by the resources that we have provided. And so we really are pleased to see that our member NGOs are making use of the Alliance resources in order to push for these vital interventions that are proven to save lives and injuries on our roads. And we really wanted to focus in particular the implementation that has occurred because of the government. And so we've picked 2 specific examples. Next slide, which is from Argentina. The municipality of Neuquén has implemented these pedestrian crossings. They newly painted the pedestrian crossings and put in a lot of 30K zones, as well as put in kilometers of cycle paths. And this has been reported by Bien Argentino. So thank you very much for highlighting this very important implementation. And they have also used the Accountability Toolkit, the Mobility Snapshots, and participated in the Incubator Program to help with their advocacy. So these are the kinds of the implementation on the ground that we would like to see more of in the next year. So next example we have is from Malawi. This is about the helmets, motorcycle helmet, and we saw that in the video as well. The Ministry of Transport and Public Works committed that all motorcycle riders must wear helmets. And so as part of that, they have strengthened their helmet enforcement, and they, along with that, to help with the enforcement, they're providing 2 helmets, one for the rider and one for the passenger. And this has been reported by the Road Safety Alert Foundation. Thank you very much. And they're also a graduate of the Alliance Incubator Program. So this is very promising to see. And then in the next slide, we've been talking about the commitments that were made at the ministerial conference. Now, we heard from 25 countries that made a commitment during the ministerial conference. And so what we've asked our NGOs is, has there any been progress on those commitments? And this is because we didn't hear from all of our member NGOs. It's not to say that the ones we have highlighted as no progress report from NGO doesn't mean that no progress has been made, but we didn't hear from our NGOs in these countries, so we don't know. But it's very promising to see 5 of the 25 countries have reported some progress on their commitments. Burkina Faso on comprehensive enforcement of speed. And Malawi, working with NGO to increase motorcycle helmet wearing, as well as 30K zone implementation, as well as roads with pedestrian facilities being built. Nepal, policy dialogue with municipalities on 30K zones, as well as pedestrian facilities. In Nigeria, the Honorable Minister offered traffic signal repairs, road marking restoration, and pedestrian walkway clearance. In Uganda, we've seen a gazettement of speed regulations and launch of the Safe School Zone guidelines this year. So this is, really great to see. And again, we need to see more of these commitments being realized on the ground. And to wrap it off, we have also asked you about the NGO calls to action. And we received many, and so we've categorized it into a short summary. So most of the calls to action was to really strengthen the speed management, 30K zones and lower speed limits, followed by other interventions which varied from governance, interagency collaboration, more open data, use of open data, which is very critical for accountability work, moving from planning to implementation, corporate social responsibility engagement, as well as meaningful participation of NGOs. And then we've seen pedestrian and cycling facilities as a big call to action, along with motorcycle helmet and traffic calming. So this was the brief summary of the accountability check that we have found this year. And so, we really like to thank for your participation and encourage you to participate more in the coming years to make this mark.
Thank you, Chika. I'm very curious about the progress against the commitments that were made in Marrakesh. And if any of you who are working in those countries where there were made commitments have any comments or could share any progress or lack of the same, please let us know in the chat, and we would welcome a few comments to that. And that actually brings us into the next part of our session here, because this is a panel of NGOs, and we have Manpreet from yours with us. We have Vivian from Madres del Oro in Argentina with us. We have Greg Kraft from ARP Foundation Vietnam with us, and we have Caro Smith from SAD South Africa with us. And the focus on this panel is really to hear from you some of the more specific examples of the progress that you have seen in the regions or in the countries or in the areas that you're working in. Before or in preparation for this session, we have been exchanging a few questions, and I will sort of ask you one by one some of those questions. And if any of you out there have anything else you would like to address or share or ask these panelists about, let us know. But let me start with you, Manpreet. Thank you for joining us. And you're from US, and it's been incredible for all of us to see how your member group have worked, have grown, how you mobilize youth around the world, and how the youth voice is really becoming much more sort of loud and specific and demanding. Reflecting on this past year here, and especially Marrakesh, what have you seen? What progress have you seen? Are there specific areas that you have seen you have had more traction, you have had more of a floor to speak from? Also thinking about Marrakesh, what have you seen? What are some of your reflections on that?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Lotte, for the invitation. Just sending Raquel's apologies. She was going to be stepping in, but I'm here on behalf of yours. So thank you so much for the invitation. It's a good question because since Marrakesh, I mean, it wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things, but probably long enough for us to see some traction and some commitments. I mean, it's really interesting and great to see the commitments that NGOs in the NGO Alliance are pushing for, and actually, there's been some follow up with that as well that we've seen. We've had a similar kind of approach and a similar push from the youth in a way, because youth, as we as yours are members of the NGO Alliance as well, and young people and NGOs have this kind of unique role within the community, within society, to push these commitments, these ideas forward, call for the things such as the Global Youth Statement that we published in Marrakesh in February. We've seen a lot of traction with that, with young people using that as a key advocacy tool, going into their communities, going into decision-making spaces, legitimized by the last 4 years of global ministerial conferences, because a lot of those young people, when they were in that conference, when they were in that meeting, actually met with ministers, met with people within their organizations who are, beyond just their community, but also kind of the decision-making spaces where this kind of conference brings those decision makers together, where young people can meet them. And so it's we had about 15 endorsements from governments as well, saying we believe in the power of youth. We want to listen to the voices of young people, because the voices of the young people, as we know, it doesn't exist in a silo. Similarly to how road safety doesn't exist in a silo, we exist in an infrastructure or an ecosystem of other public health issues as well. So one of the key processes or progresses that we've had is people seeing the value that the youth voice has in wider societal change, right? So if a young person or a youth group is pushing for road traffic crashes, sustainable mobility, for example, it benefits everybody, right? So it's about empowering that voice, hearing the voice of young people. And I'm happy to say that we had obviously the World Youth Assembly back in February as well, the third one that we've done. And that is just testament to the global community valuing the vibrancy, the energy, the real depth that youth voices, the lived experiences that they bring, but also how that connects to the broader picture, because young people are calling for things like the Sustainable Development Agenda goals, the interconnection of road safety, sustainable mobility, to all these different topics. And it's then again about giving young people an equal platform, a stakeholder platform, just like we call for other groups in society to do so. So, we've seen since Morocco, we launched our local actions, which was young people creating projects, interventions, responding to elements of the global plan, looking at it through a safe systems approach, not just through an education or a user behavior lens. And us investing in that, thanks to our supporters and our sponsors, we've seen other people or other institutions then invest in youth issues as well, because they've seen it kind of come out as an idea. It's kind of incubated, it's kind of created, it's gone out into the streets, people are connecting with it, and then other organizations are like, okay, so this is actually a credible idea. Youth ideas, youth voices are a credible source of investment and a credible source of implementation of policy, of road safety policy, or even finding the gaps in policy. So that's a really some of those really positive elements of number one, an increased appetite to hear the voices of young people as credible stakeholders, and number two, actually inviting young people to the table. We're seeing a lot more of it, for example, in Jordan, the Dominican Republic, in Nigeria, in Kenya, in Ecuador. So all of these countries are actively engaging young people to follow up on that commitment made in Marrakesh. So lots of progress, obviously still lots to do, and a changing environment that we're in.
Yeah. So all of you, I have sort of specific questions, but I'm really interested to hear if you have seen any of what Manpreet is talking about, this youth sort of voice being louder in your countries, in Argentina and South Africa and Vietnam and the countries where, Greg, you're working. And I'm super inspired by some of the youth movements that we see setting the big agenda around the world. You've seen in Nepal, you've seen in Kenya, you see in Madagascar, you sort of seen around really shaking the ground. I think our agenda might feed into some of those changes, but have you seen any of these things in your countries, Greg, Caro, Vivian, anything that you feel you can see a difference in bringing in the youth voices?
Can you hear me, Lottie?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm having trouble with my high-tech skills tonight in the phone. It's a complicated question. I think the answer is yes. For those of you that don't know me, I'm obviously probably more the generation of your parents or other elders. And, in my time, I'm American by birth. And I was a product of the 1960s and 70s, for example, with the terrible war going on. And that generation of youth, literally almost brought our government down. I could almost call it a civil war, but it did help bring the closure of the war. Now, my point in this, though, is that sense of activism, I feel, is still lacking today a little bit with youth. So all the things that were just discussed a minute ago by our colleague, I think are very encouraging, but we've got to do more. I have recently just written my daughters spread out everywhere and urging them, obviously, we've got to be careful that none of this slips into violent activism. But telling them we've got to go back to basics. You guys, you younger generation, have got to start writing letters, more letters. We can't send only one letter from the organization. I think we all have an obligation to send letters, pick up the phone, call our leaders, and get more engaged in that way. I do think it's happening, but even though I'm an eternal optimist, I think it's happening too slow. And we've got to keep getting the youth and use them as a powerful tool at our disposal.
Yeah. I think also we see seniors rising, and that's definitely something that maybe some of us can talk to, especially. Well, I have been quite. It's been quite good to see some seniors really coming together and really don't give a damn about how things are happening and don't have anything at stake. It's about their grandchildren. It's about so I think it's not only us, Greg. It's not only the youth. It's also the rest of us. Caro, you had a comment.
Yes, I'm at yours, South Africa in Marrakesh. It was wonderful. We were cycling together in the lovely yours cycle thing, and through them, we have also met other young people, young urbanists, and these groups are working very much on the rights of pedestrians and cyclists. So I think it's wonderful, well done, Manpreet, getting the youth involved. But once again, we need more people, like Greg said, we need more youth to work together with us.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Manpreet, that's your challenge. Bring us more youth. We're so happy to work with you. I think there's a lot of bridging and a lot of helping and supporting that we can do and emphasize each other's work. We often see that the NGOs are here forever. We need the youth voices to shake things up and put things on the agenda, but the NGOs are here with the connections and the long-term relationships and the advocacy and that kind of thing. Sorry, thanks for your comment, Greg. Thanks, Caro. Vivian, can I turn to you? Because we're sort of talking about Marrakesh being sort of what we have referred back to this year, and something happened in Argentina around that time, which is worth hearing some of your inputs too, or some of your what happened in Argentina.
Okay, thank you, Lotte. Well, first of all, what I always have to say is that I'm here because I lost my son, Kevin, that you see there in the picture. He was 14 years old and he was killed in a hit-and-run crash. And Lotte, yes, you were there with us and you saw that, well, our government has been in office for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And this current government has as an objective the reduction of the public sector. This means within this process, what they did was they replaced the Ministry of Transport for a transport secretariat within the Ministry of Economy. And what this led to was less independence in the implementation of road safety measures and also fewer funds to achieve these objectives. What I do have to say is that with the previous government, when we did have a Ministry of Transport, and when there were a lot of road safety offices, many of them duplicated their functions, and there was little oversight as regards the work that they did. But at the beginning of this year, when we were in Marrakesh, our government announced its intention to close the Road Safety Agency and 3 other road safety dependencies. This was part of a broader plan of staff reduction. Of course, this affected Argentina a lot. It affected Argentina's aim at reaching the global plan's objectives. And we know that it is necessary to have constant monitoring, coordination, and enforcement. Well, first of all, this idea of closing the Road Safety Agency had to go through National Congress. But meanwhile, the employees of the Road Safety Agency weren't getting their contracts renewed, so the Road Safety Agency was inactive for several months. And for example, we could see that as regards infrastructure, for about a year and a half now, there hasn't been any maintenance on the national roads. So these roads have become very dangerous. As regards enforcement, there has been limited enforcement, and the drivers know this, so there have been more crashes. But Lotte, you know that we don't stay still, so NGOs have been working a lot. Madres del Dolor, if you allow me to say this, together with other NGOs. At the national level, with an NGO that is called Yellow Stars, Estrellas Amarillas, we presented in National Congress a bill so as to reform the penal code. At the provincial level, together with authorities, we were helping victims, especially during court proceedings, we were supporting them. And at the municipal level, I saw today in the video, the NGO Bien Argentino in the province of Neuquén. We were together with Bien Argentino, and just 2 things that they were able to obtain: 22 kilometers of bike lanes turned into 150, and 400 paved blocks are now 1,600. So this is through the initiative of the Mobility Snapshot that we were able to achieve this.
Great. That's great to hear. And Vivian, I think you're also one of those who are really up in arms and tying yourself to trees and
yes,
really
yes, I did. I really tied myself to a tree.
Yeah.
At Madres del Dolor, we believe that rather than confronting with the government authorities, it's important to engage with them constructively.
Yeah.
Why am I saying this? Because we were criticized when the government was closing the road safety offices, and we were having meetings with them. But as soon as government said the Road Safety Agency has to be opened again, we were there having this dialogue and helping them reorganize themselves. We now have a new director in the Road Safety Agency. He's been there for a month, and I've already been with him twice. So
Great.
we're constantly
Yeah.
knocking on doors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is important.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I will move just in the interest of time to Greg. And Greg, one of the things that I really feel sort of stood out in Marrakesh was the focus on helmets and the focus on motorcycles. And this is an agenda and something you have worked on for a decade and more maybe. So how do you see the progress? Did Marrakesh spark anything for you? Have you seen what did you see post Marrakesh of that focus, and what's some of your reflections on that?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. If I talk too long, give me a sign like this, and I'll wrap it up because I'm very passionate about this.
Okay.
I think though it's a good news, bad news situation. Marrakesh, I think, has confirmed that helmets are definitely on the radar finally, and the importance of wearing them, and people aware of it and trying to work with their governments. And I think it's happening. For lack of a better word, it's traction and momentum that has been missing. That's sort of the good news. The bad news, I think, is that there is still way too much talking and not enough action, particularly regarding standards, helmet standards. God knows how many people have lost their lives in even the past 10 years. And most of them are young people, whether it's traumatic brain injury or actually being killed. It's unacceptable. And it's not that we have to reinvent the wheel. I've now started what I call the vaccine analogy. So many people, when I use that and talk about vaccines, even, old parents or grandparents will go, oh yeah, geez, I never thought about that. And that comes back though to one other missing component, which is what I call a culture of safety. In all of our cultures around the world, we all start as babies and children, and our grandmothers and our parents are teaching us, don't play with fire, don't stick your finger in a socket, the basics. But motorization and modernization have so overwhelmed all of us that's missing still from the equation. And I implore all of you, because we're all NGOs, but use your power and influence to maybe get your doctor. This is an idea maybe. Doctors are so well respected almost everywhere, but along with teaching new parents what they need to do to change diapers and breastfeed their kids, let's get them to start adding to the agenda of a safety culture the whole issue of preventing road crashes. I say road crashes because I think it's a little bit stronger than just talking about road safety, which sometimes just sort of rolls off our tongue very sweetly. But anyway, and then the other issue is Dr. Terry Smith and I spent 18 months developing, this may be an exaggeration, but as far as we know, the world's first child helmet wearing standard. And I implore all of you, contact me or contact me through the Alliance. We need to get this adopted, because I'm coming back to what I started to say at the beginning, the issue of standards. Guys, it's out of control. It's crazy. And big organizations and smaller ones are fighting this thing viciously. Our standard is the only standard. That is a lie. And I'm sorry to be so harsh about this, but really, I want to give a wake-up call to all of us. There are many standards that will save lives. And it's up to the countries to, I think, adopt their own standard. Obviously, it's going to be, whatever they adopt, it will be a standard that will be recognized as something that will save lives, especially children.
Yeah.
And just one last point. It's getting very unfair that there's a lot of misinformation that is now starting to float around globally in all of our countries. But I do want to emphasize that I feel very strongly nobody has the right or the power to dictate what we need, especially in low to middle income countries. And, you know, ask a lot of people that are so obsessed with this. Have you ever been to the developing world? And most of them will say no, but, you know, so what? And it also comes back to the issue on affordability. I just heard someone recently say, obviously I'm not going to name names, but someone said, oh, hey, I've done some checking on this. These helmets are only like 50 euros. That's very cheap. And, you know, it gobsmacked me.
Yeah.
50 euros is not affordable. So we need not cheap, we need affordable and safe helmets. And I still believe that relies on manufacturing in country, which we can save for another time. So I hope those brief comments help, Lottie.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Greg. And I think you're touching on so many things. And we had the session when you were part of the session in Marrakesh, and I think it was a lively discussion, to say at least. I think, and it's something that we have continued. But what I also feel is that there's at least people are coming together now, and
yes.
I'm not saying traction, but I think there is and we just need to push. And these myths that you can get a helmet for $20 or $50, we need to address them, and we're actually doing some work on that I'm looking forward to us to present early next year. Caro, I have you waiting here, and thanks for joining us, Caro Smith from South Africa. Caro, you have been, or you and some of your work in South Africa, and especially in Cape Town, has been with us for quite a long time. And could you just, Federico, so some of you might remember this picture that we're going to show now. This is Shelvin, and I don't know if you remember it, but we have used it in a couple of sessions. And if you take the next slide, there's please, next slide. Yeah. So thank you. With the permission from Caro and Shelvin, who's on the picture, I have used it in a couple of sessions, illustrating the point around how we are allowing a person to get to work on a street like this. And Caro, you have actually some news for us, and some of it is captured in a little video that you have prepared. So let's start with that, and then we go to your comments after. Thank you.
Thousands of pedestrians were forced to use the busy Kommetjie Road to move between the two communities to go to school or work or the beach. This included physically challenged people like Shelwyn, mothers pushing strollers, and cyclists. Due to there being no proper pavements, SAD identified that a walkway was a priority for their safety. Residents in the communities and the Kommetjie and Ocean View Associations joined SAD, and a peaceful protest was held to ask for Streets for Life, a commitment to act and to highlight the rights of pedestrians and cyclists. By constant engagements over 3 years with the City of Cape Town's Non-Motorised Transport Department and Redcliffe Properties, the developer of the projects in the area, a 3-meter wide separated walkway and cycle path funded by both parties was passed and started in October 2025. This advocacy here proves that civil society is vital for achieving the global plan targets and making commitments a reality on the ground.
The City of Cape Town has agreed to support and approve the upgrade of the walkway and cycle path along Kommetjie Road, recognizing the importance of community input and advocacy group efforts like South Africans Against Drunk Driving. This initiative aligns with the city's broader commitment to promoting safe and inclusive mobility, highlighting the power of collaboration between government and civil society in driving evidence-based change. Through this upgrade, we are taking action towards achieving the Global Plan's Decade of Action for Road Safety goals and creating a safer city for all residents.
Great. Caro, this is really kudos to you. I'm so pleased to hear about this progress. You sent it to us a little while ago, and I was so thrilled and happy. And could you just share some of the advocacy that went into that? In the video, you talk about the peaceful demonstrations, but you have also shared countless emails and petitions and pushes and phone calls and WhatsApp messages that you have done. Please help us a little bit on understanding how did you do this?
It's been, I think, like the mayor of Cape Town, I've eventually got to see him, and he said, "Oh my word, I've heard about you," because I copied him into every single email. So I sent it to the mayors, the premiers, the road traffic people, non-motorized, the developers. I just kept sending it over and over again and just saying, pedestrians and cyclists have rights. It's not acceptable to ignore them. And that a lack of money doesn't mean you cannot do it. So I think the thing is, one of my things in life, I never accept no. So we looked at who was working in the area. There are a lot of big developments in this area, housing developments. And we went and met with the people developing the houses and also discussed road safety with them and the rights of people in their community, and also appealed to their social conscience that they were doing something and they could actually make an enormous difference if they actually just spent a bit more money and put in separated sidewalks. From that, we also then went back to the City of Cape Town and said, these people are doing a lot of developments, so you haven't got the money, but perhaps what you can do is reduce the levies they have to pay for the city. So in that way, the developers will have more money. So yes, they passed it eventually. And the big thing, what we've just keep saying over and over again, look at evidence-based practices. Evidence works. Don't just look at things like, let's go and talk in the schools. Let's change things. Let's get separated pathways and do what is right for everybody.
Yeah. Federico, do you mind pulling up that picture of Shelvin on the road one more time? Because, Caro, maybe you could talk us through some of the things that I have used it a couple of times to illustrate how not to build a road. Could you just bring up that picture, the picture with Shelvin from the back, please? Thank you. Yeah, that one. Caro, do you want to talk us through it?
Yes, certainly. The other thing that I pointed out very much to the City of Cape Town, that if they look at their statistics, City of Cape Town have got very good statistics in the different road users who have died. And between 60 and 70% of the people who die in the City of Cape Town are pedestrians. And just saying to them that this is not acceptable. The city is very committed to changing this. They're very committed to non-motorized transport, and that here is a way that they can start it. This is something we could feed back to the United Nations and the Global Alliance. I kept saying to them, this picture has been shared all over the world, and you need to know that it's not acceptable. The world's watching us, and that once it is changed, we will show the world that it can be achieved. And so, yeah, they did it. And hopefully by us doing this, we will then be able to, other areas in South Africa will be able to copy this and push for the same rights for everybody.
Thank you, Caro, and big congratulations. And let us follow how it goes, because I think one thing is to start the implementation. Let's continue. And I think you have many. This is just one stretch of road, right? But I think it's a lesson learned of you need to start somewhere, and it's one life at a time. And thanks for also bringing in Shelvin and going back to him and the mayor as well. Thank you for sharing that. I'm supercharged by this panel and hearing both, sort of some of the, what do we need to do and some of the strong passion. I think it's something you hear, all of you coming out of our NGOs. You can go to whatever NGO in our group and you will hear this passion. This is just a handful of you, and thank you for sharing your visions and your experiences and your work. Manpreet, Vivian, Greg, and Caro, thank you very much for that. We, as part of this session here on reflecting on the global plan, we also have another panel, and for that we have invited regional stakeholders who are not NGOs and who are but are working in other fields and are supporting the NGOs and are in different ways. And to bring you in here, I'd like to invite Alex Ruhunga, who you are Ugandan MP, but you're also chairperson of the Parliamentarian Forum for Road Safety. We have Daphne Marcello, who is from Asia, and you are the APSO coordinator. This is the observatory in Asia. Then you have Bosco Martin. Bosco, you are the president of Fundación Aleática in Mexico. And then we have Klaas Tingvall, and your title is a little bit longer. But I will just pull out one thing, because you are the chairman of the academic expert group who was set up in Stockholm, or for the ministerial conference in Stockholm, and you continued your work for the ministerial meeting in Marrakesh. But you also have many other titles, and is a long-term friend of the Alliance, but also a big profile in our road safety world here. I would like to start again. I find it really interesting when you, if we could sort of combine the questions, because a lot of it is really what progress have you seen from your viewpoint since the last year here, both what successes, but also what challenges you have seen. And I would like to start with that question to you, Honorable Ruhunga, from a parliamentarian viewpoint. What are the challenges that you have seen, and what are some of the successes you have seen? And I would be in particular interested in sort of putting it into the context of the Marrakesh conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Lottie. You can hear me properly?
Yes, we hear you well. Thank you.
Yeah, we are just in the middle of the campaigns. We are trying to get back to the community to elect us back to Parliament. So it's been a hectic schedule for me. So I just had to pull off and come and be part of this very important panel. In Uganda, of course, we sent representatives. I didn't attend the Marrakesh, but we were well represented, and the feedback which we got, of course, we had to ensure that some of the commitments that were made are implemented on the ground. I think Uganda is one of the few countries that have got a strong road safety and water safety forum in Parliament. And I've been the chair for the last 14 years. So that is the passion which I hold in this fight against the reckless death. Yeah. So we improved our legislation for the traffic to incorporate actually what has been what was proposed. And we've been doing some road safety audits to see how the enforcement of enhancing the driver training and licensing, because that is extremely very important. A lot of the mistakes that are made on the roads, they are purely individual. They are human error. We have a lot of reckless statements. I mean, decisions being made where people are overtaking in corners, very dangerous, and then we lose lives like that. So enforcement of that at the training and licensing level is something we had to put into scrutiny. And of course, implementing the stricter vehicle inspection regimes, because that is also something we have seen. Many of these heavy traffic, they lose brakes because of poor maintenance, and they at the end of the day, we lose a lot of lives because of that. So we have also tried to ensure implementation of the technology-based tracking systems, especially for the repeat offenders, to see that they are really delicensed and removed from the road. So some of these have been implemented. On top of that, Parliament of Uganda ensured that we have funding for the road maintenance in the rural areas, and to enable the traffic improve and the risk on our lives protected. But I have to say that irrespective of these interventions, because as Parliament, we are on record having forced the increment in the budget for the road sector, the safety aspects, because many of the technocrats we have, they think about just infrastructure, working on good roads, and not minding about the safety that goes with the designs of these roads. So we pushed a lot we increased by 100% the funding for the safety campaigns, because we think that a lot of the challenges that we confront us is more being naive, ignorant, illiterate actually about road safety, the safety components. So this is a bigger area which we think the sensitization has to move across the country. And I have loved one of the discussions which I have picked from the NGO panel about the youth, involvement of the youth. The youth campaigns is extremely very, very important. And I think I have picked that. I will have to take it up here in my country, because it is something we have. Uganda is 70% youth percent. Those are the majority. And I think this is an area where we need the youth passionately to embrace how to protect their lives. So I think my biggest disappointment is that irrespective of the measures which we have taken in the last 3 years, we have now seen the accidents increase by 6.4%. And for me, this is really something that is disturbing on our side, because we recorded 25,107 accidents of 2024 as opposed to 2023. So it increased by 6.4%. So that's where I need, more. We have to put our brains together to see how do we really, much as we have opened up the campaigns, we are enforcing on the helmets. It is still at a very low percentage, but I see the accidents increase much more. Yet we are trying to push for all these campaigns. So I'm happy that there are very many concerned. This is a global challenge, and we are combining efforts to see how do we really live up to the standards that are required to protect lives. And this is something that I am passionate about, and I am happy that you are out there, and we shall be able to move along.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You have an extremely active civil society and road safety group in Uganda. It's a group of 40 different entities who have come together on road safety, which I really think is it's such an admirable way of working. You're also one of the brave ones who came up with a commitment in Marrakesh, and some of the things you just touched upon is actually moving forward on that: vehicle inspection, data collection, national coordination, NGO involvement. So congratulations on that. And I think it really takes someone who takes things seriously, who come up with a commitment. I would like thank you very much for your comments, and congratulations on your work, and also congratulations and thank you for being so honest about also some of the shortcomings. Maybe there's some of the other panelists who have some ideas. I would like to hear from Daphne, because Daphne, you are part of the observatory, and something like what Mr. Ruhunga is talking about, some of the challenges he's facing, that's some of the help that an observatory. Now you're from the Asia Observatory, and you're working with 27 countries in that region. There's also an African observatory. But what are some of the ways that you are working and potentially could help someone like Mr. Ruhunga and his work?
Thank you so much,
Not
Lottie.
you, but an observatory as such.
Yes, thank you for the question, Lottie, and for inviting representation from the Asia Pacific Road Safety Observatory. And I'm happy to speak about, I think, what the unique proposition or the value added by these kind of regional platforms that can contribute and kind of harness and shape and tighten the way that all stakeholders, including our civil society stakeholders, can do to advance the global plan for the Decade of Action for Road Safety, and especially to call power to account, as the Special Envoy mentioned in his opening remarks. So from our experience within the APRSO, we are the largest regional platform for road safety in the Asia Pacific. And maybe I can talk a little bit about the main challenges we've seen post Marrakesh, and then move forward to the opportunities to then tie to some ideas that Alex had raised. So at least within Asia, after the Marrakesh ministerial meeting, we did see 3 clear challenges that emerged. The foremost being on financing. Within Asia, we've seen that traditional funding mechanisms have been failing. So at the start of the decade, the requirement within the region for road safety was estimated at $57 billion. But now, halfway through, the annual investment needed is estimated already at $75 billion. So a clear need for stronger financing mechanisms. We've also seen that, at baseline, there is an increased call across the countries that the observatory provides support to for the safe system implementation, at that capacity building level. And lastly, the most, I would say, baseline or the most primordial function of our observatory is as to data. So we've seen that challenge in just the quality, the timeliness, and even the accuracy and completeness of road crash data that is being collected across the countries that we support. But the good news is that, at least from our observatory's perspective, and maybe this can tie into some of the thoughts on how to move forward, as Alex had raised, is tying into the regional initiatives that you see in platforms like, what we have at the APRSO. At least from our perspective, we've kind of seen post Marrakesh that there had been momentum as to financing, and this was the heavy focus of the recently concluded 2025 conference that we had in September. So there, we convened a ministerial meeting during that conference, and that meeting talked on alternative models to finance road safety, especially considering another challenge, which is that traditional sources of funding, like excise taxes on oil, might be seen to be drying up with increased electrification. So we took that opportunity during that meeting to hold power to account and to follow up on the commitments made during the Marrakesh meeting, particularly from our members in Armenia, Bhutan, Cambodia, Fiji, and Nepal. So we did see that was helpful to raise awareness, to sustain momentum, and to follow up on the commitments that they had made.
Yeah.
Speaking now to, I think, safe system implementation, what we've seen as an opportunity within our observatory is that we are the platform to be approached by member countries, their government representatives, to seek that assistance, to seek that information, that technical expertise. And while we may not necessarily have, or while we may not have the roster amongst ourselves, because we are formally a data support mechanism within the region, we do have that collaborative capacity to bring consultants and to kind of bring that training to our member countries. I think this is greatly helped by the fact that the APRSO Secretariat is actually housed within the Asian Development Bank. So multilateral development banks have a great role to play in what we're able to do.
Yeah.
And I would, yeah.
Yeah, Daphne, thank you very much. I'm a little bit short of time, but can I get back to you? I think it's really interesting to hear some of because you're going beyond data and you're going beyond and you're moving into the finance models, which is quite, that's something we're all talking about, and how do we finance road safety? And that's why we need to keep Benazir Boulahjoul in the meeting today, and he couldn't make it because he needs to defend his budget. And Alex, you're also talking about budget negotiations and how you have increased your budget. Bosco, I'd like to turn to you, and you were also one of the stars in Marrakesh. You had a lot of speaking roles. We saw you everywhere. You are both part of a private sector, but also part of a foundation. What have you seen from your perspectives? What have you seen after Marrakesh? What are sort of the challenges and some of the successes that you've seen coming out of it?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Lotte. I really appreciate it, and very grateful to be in this panel with such a group of distinguished speakers that I'm enjoying very, very much the discussion. As we know, Latin America faces major challenges in road safety. Yet these challenges also offer the opportunity to make a meaningful impact and position the region as a global leader. In recent years, we have made meaningful progress in strengthening the regulatory frameworks and promoting road safety education and culture. Yet, we continue to face structural challenges in building a truly safe mobility system. Latin America remains, unfortunately, among the regions with the highest road fatality rates worldwide. Every year, the region records more than 110,000 deaths and over 5 million injuries caused by road traffic incidents, with an estimated mortality rate of 15 to 20 per 100,000 inhabitants. This obviously has a major impact on national development and costing more than 3% of the region's GDP. What we've seen based on the experience at Fundación Aleática, we have identified 3 challenges that call for a collaborative multi-sector approach. Number 1 is strengthen safe and sustainable infrastructure for all road users based on international standards and effective investment mechanisms. Number 2, consolidate a preventive road safety culture that promotes education, awareness, behavioral change, especially among motorcycles and young people. That is where we're seeing the highest increase in the region. And number 3, expand institutional coordination and ensure continuity in public policies. Fostering joint participation among governments, private sector, academia, and obviously civil society that plays a key role in putting the issue on the table. Now, speaking about progress, we can say that Latin America concrete steps have been taken on this agenda. In Mexico, the main advances includes an increasing number of state governments that have already harmonized their local laws in alignment with the general law of mobility and road safety, where the civil society play a key role to put the key issues on the table. Also, the development and implementation of road safety education and training programs focus on vulnerable users, particularly motorcycles. And number three, the creation and strengthening of public-private partnerships aim at improving infrastructure, traffic management, and safety in both urban and highway environments. These efforts are complemented by the growing participation of civil society organizations, foundations, and academic institutions that promote evidence-based projects, educational programs, and communication programs. And the private sector, in turn, is increasingly integrating road safety into its core and recognizing that there can be no program or equity if we don't move in these very important issues. No, in this context, Lotte, let me share that in the particular case of Aleatica that you kindly mentioned, we took the decision to voluntarily certify the highways we operate with the UN-endorsed IRAP methodology, earning 3-star or higher safety ratings across 8 of the 16 toll roads we operate. And in Marrakesh, we made a commitment to ensure safe journeys for 75% of our users by 2030, in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 4. We would like to take this opportunity, Lotte, to make a call for government and international development banks to include as a requirement that all new highway concession projects are required a 3-star IRAP rating or better to reduce this huge gap that we have right now and advance on a shared vision of safer mobility for everyone. The challenges persist, but so does our belief that shared responsibility is the only way forward. Thank you, Lotte.
Thank you. Thanks, Bosco. And I think it's actually a clue to you, Klaas, because we're talking, one of the Marrakesh academic group talked about was the responsibility of the private sector, but also of the public sector. And you have actually been part of sort of promoting a framework which takes the stand in the ILO Occupational Health and Safety Conventions. Is that the right resolutions? Maybe you want to share a little bit about that, and also how's it going?
Thanks, and thanks, Lotte, for inviting me. And I'm so happy to hear everything you are talking about. I honestly admire what you're doing, and I wish you to continue also into what I'm going to talk about now. As you said, there is an expert group set up by the Swedish government to help with the ministerial conferences. The task is really to do sort of excavations or move into unknown territory, to add different kinds of tools and stakeholders and so on to the normal suspects, but also to add both within the private sector as well as a lot of other things like the financial sector and so on, so that we can talk to them, so we understand their language and the logics and can use that. And I mean, we moved so far upstream that we almost sort of lost sight of where we're coming from, but that's been very exciting to do. And one of them earlier was the 2020 was about sustainability. I mean, health, equity, climate, to see where we belong to there. And as we all know, we do that, and we have a lot to do that. But now for the Marrakesh, really the task was to move into the territory of occupational health and safety, not unknown to us in road safety community. I think we've been talking about that for 50 years or something like that, but with a new understanding. Yeah. And the understanding is really that, first of all, the most common cause of accidental death at a workplace, including those third parties, I mean, people around the workplace that might be killed as well through work use of the road transport system from an organization, that it is the most common cause of accidental death in every country of the world and accounts for roughly 1/3 of all fatalities. Well, around at least I should say 400,000 deaths out of the 1.2 million. And that's shocking, of course, and it's an insight that most people don't have, that it is the most common, by far, I should say, the most common cause of accidental death. We believe it's people falling from buildings and things like that. That is not the case. Not saying that is important anyway. The other thing is that, and that's probably more important, that the legislation, or as you say, the conventions that really comes out of ILO, which is another UN body for the workplace, then that the conventions and so on, that is sort of, signed by more or less all countries of the world, or the principles are adopted. That there's no difference between inside and outside the gates of a company or a corporation of any kind. The same principles of prevention of health loss or in injuries is exactly the same. There's no difference. There's no one talking about a difference. In practice, there's a huge difference. People still believe that it is sort of the individual driver who is responsible. Well, sure, of course, you should follow the road rules, but in terms of preventing from things you do out there as a corporation, is exactly the same principles you have for all other workplace safety, and you should apply them by law. And more important than so, it is a fundamental issue when you talk about the compliance that companies, especially multinational companies, the kind of commitment they have to do to the financial sector. I mean, to the funding bodies, to the investors, to the insurance companies, anyone sort of stakeholder in that field, that compliance with law is a fundamental thing. A big company cannot break the law without pretty serious implications for their sort of financial status. They run into problems sooner or later. And therefore, for us, I should say, it became a surprise how poor the judicial system understands this. I mean, the prosecutors, the police, and so on, probably have very, very close to zero understanding of what we're talking about. But it's the same with us in the road safety sector. I think it's the same with the NGOs that would like to see interfering with this, not only with the, as you said, governments, but also with the whole sort of private sector as a whole, I say financial sector and so on, because there's such big hope in having, especially multinational companies, because you need to work from the top. You can't start with small corporations, but from the top to see what you can do as a big corporation. And when you're asking a lot about the progress, yeah, there is a lot of hope. We have a number of big companies that we have looked at and really audited in terms of what they've been doing and their performance and how well they know their safety footprint and so on. And I mean, there are companies like Uber, Amazon, UPS, Shell, IKEA, Honda Motors, Scania, and so on, that really has started, some of them in a very professional way, far more professional than what you see normally from a government, for example, reducing death rates with much more than 50% within their sphere of influence that they actually have. So, and progress, yes, it will happen. It won't happen overnight, but the same kind of monitoring, and you talk about accountability for governments. I would love, and I think I have many others who would love to see the same thing from the NGOs, that looking at the private sector with these kinds of eyes, not in an aggressive way, but in a way that really increase the expectations that we have on the private sector. That also includes governments, of course, and public procurement and so on.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Back to you.
And I think sort of one thing that I can hear really coming out of this panel is these entry points that we all have, that we're all using to improve our road safety situation and contribute to the reduction of fatalities. And I think it's really rewarding to hear, although it's different angles, how we as I see it, quite mature in terms of thinking about how we do this. It's not the same as we are doing it, but a lot of efforts are put into this. And I would like to thank you individually for your time now and also sharing your thoughts and your work. It's been very interesting to hear. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. I would like now to Valerie, are you ready for summarizing?
I am. Wow, okay. I don't have a lot of time left, but
I know.
But, I'm going to jump right in.
Thank you.
So I've been typing madly, trying to process some of these reflections and summary points. The conversation was inspiring and sobering at the same time. I think we can safely say from all our speakers and the videos we heard earlier, there's both signs of progress. We heard from the special envoy who called them bright spots, impressive commitments and reductions from some countries, but also stark reminders of some of the deep challenges that remain. Across the conversation, absolutely there's consensus. We know what works, but it is not yet being implemented at the scale, speed, or coordination required. We heard from Daphne that in the Asia-Pacific region, 27 countries are advancing collective efforts with some really interesting insights around financing through the Asia-Pacific Road Safety Observatory. Really interesting around the aligning regional action with the Marrakesh Declaration. I think that's a fantastic and tangible example of how cross-country collaboration can accelerate the global plan. Yet from every region, we also heard the same barriers. As Etienne said, at a high level, we are working in a very challenging global environment. Across regions, we are seeing uneven political commitment, fragmented accountability, and limited funding, especially at the local level where it matters the most. The opening NGO panel, I felt, really brought a human perspective vividly to life, which is so important in our storytelling and advocacy. Manpreet from yours reminded us that our youth are not just the beneficiaries, but they are drivers of change. For those of us in Morocco, we saw this loud and clear in action. As Lotte said, youth shaking the ground. They bring a strong, specific, and transparent voice to the work we're doing, and they call for urgency. Vivian from Argentina shared a sobering example of regression when the National Road Safety Agency was dismantled shortly after the ministerial conference. On a side note, very quickly, we're seeing this in Canada with some provinces, including my own province, shutting down automated speed enforcement across the province and removing already established cycling lanes. And certainly in the US, we're seeing major transport and health institutions being shut down. Vivian's message was loud and clear. Institutional instability can erase years of progress overnight, and NGOs become one of the only remaining voices of accountability. On the good side, from the sounds of it, Vivian and other NGOs are still fighting and also trying to positively engage with their government and have had some great wins around cycling infrastructure. Greg from Vietnam spoke about the unacceptable situation in regards to the continuing inequities around safe and affordable helmets, a simple proven intervention, yet one that remains unevenly applied and still out of reach for many. Wonderful to hear from Caro from South Africa, showing us what persistence looks like. 3 years of advocacy finally leading to an approval of separated sidewalks in a dangerous stretch of Cape Town. A small piece of infrastructure, but a monumental win for community safety. And I loved hearing how you engaged and leveraged the power of developers. Congrats, Caro. It's so important to hear and share stories of optimism, especially when there's such a narrative of frustration and despair in areas of our world. Together, these stories remind us that while data and national strategies absolutely matter, real change is built step by step, often by people who refuse to give up. Moving to a higher level, Claes offered an important insight from the academic expert group of the ministerial conference. He reminded us road crashes are the leading cause of death at work, yet few judicial or corporate systems recognize this as an occupational health and safety issue, which would really move our needle. A real call to multinational companies, CEOs, investors, insurers, and the judicial system to share responsibility for prevention. I'm wrapping up very quickly. Bosco Marti spoke about the Latin American collaborative on multi-sectoral approach that included work with the civil society as well as academic and private sector collaboration. And he spoke about a call to action around highway infrastructure and the evidence-based rating system. At a national level, we heard from Mr. Ruhunda in Uganda about a strong collective of NGOs. And despite an increase in collisions, it sounds like there is an increased commitment to budgets, changes at the judicial level, speaking to earlier Claves' remarks, as well as a focus on vehicle inspection. From South Africa to Asia, Argentina to Europe, regional contexts are different. However, what we heard loud and clear is that there's strikingly similar obstacles. Fragmented governance, we have strong strategies, often weak implementation, resource constraints, and siloed agendas. These are the gaps where NGOs operate, filling voids, holding government leaders accountable. And what we really need to see is these local wins that Chica, Caro, Vivian, and others spoke about. We need to see them spread and scale across our countries, creating a mobilizer our decision makers cannot say no to. Closing comment, I want to leave us with a quote by Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Valerie. That was a very, very nice quote to end this session on. I agree. It's been very, very inspiring to be with all of you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for contributing. Thanks for summarizing. Thanks for your video clips and everything. I am leaving this meeting with a new hope for a lot of things. It's been very, very good to be with you. Thank you so much for your time, and see you soon.
Thank you, Lotte.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.